IVM.
Hey guys, even though Elon Musk is trying to turn everyone into robots, you'll be happy to know that very real human beings work at IVM Podcasts, and some of them are even cool. How do I know? Well, listen to their own podcast, IVM Likes, where they recommend what they are listening to, watching, or reading. Catch IVM Likes every Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And may I recommend the IVM Podcasts app.
Hello and welcome to the Geek Bulletin, a source for news and not news. This is a more apt description.
No, keep going.
Well, okay, you've just heard the dulcet tones of Jishnu Guha, who is with me here to discuss the news and not news of the day in the nerd world / pop culture ethos of our universe.
You're just burying yourself, digging deeper and deeper into this
Well, dig me out, Jigs.
chasm of doom.
Why have I hired you if
No,
not
I'm
to save
on the
me?
other side of the planet. I'll wait until you dig your way through.
And just meet you on the
I'll
other
see
side?
you there. I'll see you then.
I have reached you.
I believe in you. I'll see you tomorrow.
I am so glad. Listen, Jigs.
Yeah.
Just tell me what's up. What's going on?
Boba Fett was a movie. Boba Fett is now not a movie.
It was supposed to be a James Mangold movie.
Yeah,
in fact.
and I was so excited.
Right,
I
that
was
sounds
very
like a
excited.
great combination.
Yeah, James Mangold did Logan, which is arguably my favorite film of the year.
Was that this year?
20, I don't even know anymore.
No, I think it was last year,
It was
right?
last year, 2017?
Yeah, I feel like it was a while ago.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Last 2017 might be my favorite film of the year. And he was going to do the Boba Fett solo film. Mm-hmm. But now it's not, and that's a shame. However, let's not cry too many tears because
what is the reasoning they've given for this?
the usual, nothing too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
They just said Kathleen Kennedy finally says it is, to quote the
She went
the
more
Hollywood
like,
Reporter. She said, to quote, Boba Fett movie is 100% dead. I was like,
Really?
damn, that is
good.
very
It's
deliberate
fallen
and
into
specific.
a
Yeah.
Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, the article on the Hollywood Reporter just says that it's about problems with the director again.
With James M. Why?
I don't know, but I mean, the thing is, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these things happen. It's just that I keep having to remind people that Star Wars is the one thing that, for better or for worse, has one hell of a microscope on it at all
Yeah.
times, and every little inch that they move in any direction, people are going to like blow up and make headlines out of it. Maybe this film, didn't even get far enough along in the process
Yeah,
for
I
it to
don't
be
think it
worth
was-
talking about.
Probably not.
But only
it
because
was
it's Star
literally
Wars.
only announcement.
Yeah, it's only because of the fact that it's Star Wars. We know that somebody has whispered the word Boba Fett movie. And we're like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so like the fact that Kathleen's like, actually, you know what, guys? I know what I'm doing. Let's not do this right now. Fair play. Why? Because there already exists the Mandalorian
Yes.
TV show, which is being made by Jon Favreau, which is also incredibly exciting. And I am very excited for that. I think you can get plenty of deets about the Fett family if they want to,
Yeah.
in that alone. So maybe you don't even need a movie.
Possibly.
Arguably, you'll get even more out of it if they do choose to tell you about the Fets, which nobody's to say.
They'll probably pop up.
They
I
probably,
wanna say.
yeah, maybe not anytime soon, but so that's what's happening.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
them.
and I don't think
Enjoy.
there's going to be like a huge outcry over this anyway, because we're getting the Mandalorian, and not a lot of people knew much about this movie at this point.
Yeah.
So I think they probably didn't even have a script. They were just in discussions about doing the movie.
all that I've seen is that it was going to be about Boba and his bounty hunter friends who are from the scene in Empire Strikes Back where they're all lining up and Vader says, "Go get him," but no disintegrations.
Yeah.
So, you have your Bosk, who was, I think, Bosk? Was that his name? Bosk or Busk? Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
The lizard dude.
Right.
Three toes lizard man.
I know he's
might have
called
been,
Bosk.
yeah, he might have been my first or second Star Wars action figure.
Really?
Very random. I only bought it because it said Star Wars. And I was like, hey,
Yeah,
I don't know what
wonder
this
you
is.
recollect the name then.
Yeah. I was just
I
cool.
still think all of this is irrelevant, because where is our Figrin Dan docudrama? When is that
a
coming?
docudrama.
Yeah, like a behind the music style documentary about Figrin Dan and the modal nodes, or the nodal modes.
Modal nodes.
Modal nodes.
I would love to see like a Chili Peppers Funky Monks kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's a black and white movie with Fingering Dan and Rick Rubin.
It's not Fingrin Dan,
I mean,
it's
it's-
Figrin,
I mean,
he's figuring it out.
He'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see him and Rick Rubin locked away in a house, smoking a lot of weed and
Yeah.
doing acid and just like
and just like having a creative renaissance of sorts.
Yeah.
Where Rick Rubin is just like, let's take it back to the basics, man. All right.
Tell me some not news.
Well, I have something that is possibly not news by the time we talk about this, but either way. A dude we like, Adam Scott, is taking the role of another dude we like, William Shatner,
What?
in the reboot of a Twilight Zone episode. So you know how Jordan Peele is rebooting the Twilight Zone?
Yes,
I think he's the narrator.
So it is going to be the Twilight Zone, just again, but different?
I think so.
Or is it like based on the Twilight Zone? It is, or is it
well,
the Twilight
Zone was like an anthology series.
Right.
So I know for a fact that they're remaking some of the classic episodes.
Okay, so they are literally continuing the franchise. It's not like a based on and we're like using it as inspiration or something.
No, so I mean, I think basically, so how that dude whose name I forget was the anchor at the end of the Twilight Zone would go like, and that's what happened in the Twilight Zone or whatever it was. They have Jordan Peele playing that role.
Nice.
And I think he's also a producer or something.
Okay.
And they will recreate some of the old episodes, but also they'll probably, I'm sure they'll add new stories.
Sure.
Especially
they might
because
have websites in some of these episodes.
they might. And I mean, it's 2018 and the world is a freak show anyway, so why not talk about some of that?
Yeah.
So, the episode that Adam Scott will be in is called Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Oh, nice.
And it's a callback to arguably the most famous Twilight Zone ever, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. So they've added 10,000 feet because time has moved on. But in the original, William Shatner played an anxiety-ridden man who takes a flight, only to become convinced there's a gremlin on the wing of the plane. This is I have never seen this episode.
Neither have I.
But apparently it's one of the most famous ones ever. And Adam Scott will be playing William Shatner's role. Weird one.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I think Adam Scott would play a very good scared protagonist.
Yeah, he could.
He'd be very good at I'm terrified, yet somehow I will have the will to persevere through this.
Man, he's just such a cool guy. I think like he could do anything. He's been great in like a lot of dramatic roles as well, in like a bunch of his like indie comedies and stuff.
Totally.
And of course he's hilarious.
Great. He's great. Yeah, his opinions on the best U2 albums are also far superior to the other Scott.
Yes, of course. We know him best as the co-host of a U2 podcast called You Talkin' U2 to Me, and then a subsequent REM podcast called Are You Talkin' REM RE Me? And those are really his finest achievements.
I tend to agree with him more so than Scott Part 2.
I go back and forth between the two, but have you heard the REM podcast?
Not much.
So, Scott Aukerman, who is the other host along with Adam Scott, is not as much of a fan of REM as Adam Scott is. And I also look at some message boards where they discuss the episodes, and someone tallied the number of times Adam Scott listened to an REM song and said he didn't like it, and it's something like twice out of their entire catalog.
Nice.
Every other song he's like, I love this song, this is a great song. He's a real fanboy for REM, even more so than he was for U2. So it's a pretty great listen.
Okay.
And there's
I need to work my way through it. That's the only reason I haven't started yet. The only album I know really well is Automatic for the People. So I want to make sure I hear the music properly before I hear their opinions on it, because I don't want them to color my opinion on it.
Well, they also spend like at least 80% of the runtime of the episode talking about
other
nothing.
things. Yeah, sounds like a lot like a podcast that I'm familiar with intimately.
Why? Who would do that? All other podcasts are tightly focused on the topic of their choice.
Absolutely, as the best are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so I'll get there. I know it's on my list. Just last night I was jamming out to some night swimming.
It deserves a better
it's a
night
song.
though.
This is our life now. All right, so any more?
Yes, I have another piece of news it's a controversy that's been around for a bit over the past year or so, which is Apu, Nahasima Pima Petalon, the character on The Simpsons, is now possibly going to be dropped because Matt Groening is just like, I don't. Yeah, he's kind of just sick of it, and he's like, I don't care enough to have him on, so I might just drop him.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on this whole Apu business anyway?
I think political correctness will be the death of us all.
You were an Indian in the US.
I was.
Which is what? Did you run a convenience store there? Did you run a Quickie Mart?
I didn't run it. I did work.
Oh, you didn't. I'm sorry. 1,000 apologies.
I did work behind the counter for about 2.5 years.
At a Quickie Mart?
At a diner.
Really?
Yeah, I was a short order cook and then a waiter, and then I cleaned bathrooms.
What is a short order cook? Fries?
Yes.
Like
fries,
basically stuff that's instantly served up?
Yes, you are literally a human microwave.
Right.
Yeah. That's so like I made like burgers and fries and sandwiches and stuff. I worked at a...
Was this like a franchise we know?
No,
Okay.
no. It was called...
It was like a local diner.
Yeah, it was called DK's. I forget what it stands for, but it's DK's are the first two initials of Mr. Pearson, who was one of the founders of the college that I worked at.
Right.
The building was called Pearson's, and the diner was called DK's. It was incredibly indulgent of him, I think.
I'm sure.
But that's where I worked, and nobody ever heard of it, no.
Did you ever face any stereotyping of the sort?
Where I was?
Yeah, like any Apu-type name-calling?
Yeah, but in jest. And I embraced it. I embraced the hell
out of it.
I mean,
you were in a pretty collegey town, correct?
It was a town of 35,000 people. The college was about 1,200.
Right.
So yes and no, because there was very few other people. But this is a whole other podcast episode, Dinkar, if we're going to get into this. Because, but my experience was incredibly blessed because I was in I was in bumfuck nowhere, middle of nowhere, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Which has a very strong Republican population.
Oh, okay.
And the people of the town of Beloit are primarily red. But at least at the time.
On the neck.
Yes. Farmer's Stand, it's called.
Right.
Yeah. So while the locals would normally vote the other way against favorable immigration laws and things of that nature, the college, on the other hand, is incredibly blue and incredibly proactive, and I honestly think a little to a fault. Like, it's kind of like, all right, calm your tits, guys. This is a bit much.
Right.
And I've never been the most politically active person by a long shot, but I was very blessed that I got to see both sides of the fence that way, and was treated equally and openly and with incredibly warm embrace from both sides of the fence. So I just lucked out because I've never felt a shred of any animosity that way. But that being said, yeah, people made jokes constantly.
Sure.
And I was always well aware that, yes, that's perfectly okay because I am, in fact, different than the other guy. So please do call me funny names.
You were also at an age, I think, where you could be more understanding of it and sometimes understand that it might not be coming from the worst place. Like, people might just be making jokes and be like a little short-sighted.
Right.
Or sometimes they might be like outright dicks, which thankfully you never faced. But so I never had I never really cared because watching Apu growing up, I was like, whoa, he's talking about the Lord Ganesha, which is like a thing I know.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was cool. I was like, I'm glad that he's there, and I'm glad even if it's the butt of a joke, at least he's there.
Kind of, right? And then I watched the documentary that kind of kickstarted this controversy. I mean, it's been a controversy for a while, but Hari Kondabolu, who is a comedian, made this like short 45-ish minute documentary about called The Problem with Apu, where he talks about how it was such a problem for him growing up as a kid in the US.
Okay.
And he talks about how he would constantly be called Apu and basically like a lot of like harassment that he faced because of Apu being a character in The Simpsons. And I realized that's a pretty different perspective. Like, the character might not be racist to Indians. I mean, it is racist to Indians, but we just treat it as like any stereotype. Like the chef on The Simpsons who keeps going like, Mamma Mia.
See, I think the problem therein lies if somebody was harassed because using Apu as a weapon against them. The problem is not Apu. The problem is the person using Apu as a weapon. If Apu didn't exist, that jackass who was harassing that kid
he would have found
something else. So don't blame Apu.
He would have found Kalima from
exactly.
Indiana Jones.
I was literally, you know what I was called? The one insult, if you can call it that. I remember distinctly because I play guitar, and in college I had long hair, and people knew me as the dude with long hair that plays guitar. People called me Stamos all the time.
What?
John Stamos.
Like John Stamos?
Yeah. I love John Stamos. I was like, I wish. Please call me Stamos more. Maybe one day I'll become him.
Okay.
You know?
That was clearly just a long story that you brought up to humble brag, Jishnu.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing. That was like somebody would keep on using that sort of against me, like, oh my God, Stamos is back again. I was like, yeah.
Remarkably... such an
I
open...
wish.
Yeah, I know. That's cool.
Yeah. You know, so to that end, how do I feel about Apu being cancelled? I think it's dumb, and I think it's giving into peer pressure, basically. Political peer pressure.
I do understand where it's coming from.
I do understand,
but
it
doesn't make sense anymore.
But I don't think it makes it right. Being offended doesn't make you right.
Not necessarily, but I mean, you can't deny the fact that these kids had problems, right?
Yeah,
like, so
absolutely.
There's a lot of literally any Indian American or Asian American person of note was in that documentary. So there's like Cal Penn, for example, talks about how he just hates The Simpsons purely because Apu exists, and like that's a guy with a smart head on his shoulders. He's not just like picking at something for the sake of it. You can't. So I agree with you when you say that those people would have found another weapon anyway, but why give them one in the first place, right? But I do think it's too late now, and taking him off the air now isn't going to fix anything. If anything, you should make like Apu a more representative character.
Yeah.
And
exactly that. It's the same. It's my same sentiment towards like the James Gunn thing of like just because somebody somewhere randomly decided out of the blue years after the fact that I feel like being offended by this now. You should now undo years of really solid hard work. And no,
I feel like
I think it's just,
they're not direct comparisons. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I feel like in the James Gunn case, it's giving in. In the Apu case, I kind of see the point of the politically correct crowd, even though I never felt like that. I see what they're saying, but it's a tough one, and it's something that we'd have to unpack in a way more extensive format than the one we have on the Bulletin, where we're supposed to discuss news and not news, and not
what is
like...
this? Is this news?
This is...
I guess this is news.
I suppose this is news.
Right, well,
it's news that led to a larger discussion, which perhaps we'll discuss someday. Representation in pop culture nerddom on a longer episode. Speaking of which, our longer episode this week talks about another film with some representation of Indians, the Harry Potter franchise, which starred Parvati and Padma Patil. So listen to Jishnu and I recap all the books and the movies and how we felt about them and what they mean to us in the world today on the longer episode of the Geek Fruit podcast this week. Until then, stay in touch at Geek Fruit HQ on all the socials and contact geekfruit@gmail.com on the emails. See ya, you nerds.
Do you have a night routine? Well, everyone has one. And the to-do list usually looks like this. Brush your teeth, set that alarm, get into your pajamas, and switch off those screens. But here's one more to add to that list. Tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast for a dose of positive action and tips on how to build powerful mindsets. Episodes out every Monday on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you tune into podcasts.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to listen to attempt number 15 to record the promo for the podcast Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
All day, all night, Varta Lab.
Oh yeah. It's a really nice podcast, guys. It's with me and Naveen, and it has really nice stories.
Yeah, people come tell their stories, ups and downs, fun times. We all cry at the end. It's like a Karan Joy movie, but in 1 hour or less.
Hey.
Yeah, every Monday. Yeah.
It's got humor.